Everyone, today I am doing another tier list, another class tier list. This time I am covering Vanguards. Vanguards are one of the two primary options for your main damage dealer when going about your team building and your party composition. They heavily revolve around going into the hide state, using that hide ability, remaining hidden, going in, getting surprise attacks and backstabs, backing up, going into hidden again, and just repeating the cycle. They can easily dish out hundreds of damage per round, even early in the game, and reaching into thousands later in the game. They're also very popular because they're an extremely low risk class. If you're used to playing with them, your ability to pretty much ensure that you always end in the hidden state and don't get revealed by enemies during their turn is almost 100%, which means you're pretty much never taking damage on them and just easily dishing out damage. The rest of your party pretty much just needs to stall them and soften up your targets. Now, there are only 5 Vanguards in the game, not a whole lot, and there's definitely some variety between them, but definitely not a lot compared to some of the other classes I've reviewed so far. They can be a bit samey, and this is a good thing gameplay-wise because it really means you can use any of them and still get really good results. But it can kind of be a bad thing at the same time because they feel so similar. There's not a whole lot to make them stand out, which means it's not super exciting switching between Vanguard to Vanguard. There is some exceptions to this, of course, and ultimately, whoever you're going to use will largely be dependent on your alignment, I found, but there are 2 neutral options in here, and honestly, they seem to be some of the most popular picks as well once you start getting later into the game. As usual, my S tier is going to be the Vanguard. That's basically, this is the best one in the game. They're very strong from pretty much start to finish, and if you're looking for the most optimal, it's basically the highest damage dealing one. When you get into A tier, still good damage, but not quite as good as S tier to really put them into there. But they may have some other facets of their skill tree that definitely still help them stand out amongst the rest of them. B tier, this is going to be your sort of standard Vanguard, the sort of baseline. If they're at least this good, then you're going to have pretty much no complaints about them. And then C tier, this is where the weakest Vanguard is going to go. And basically, there's just something about the skill tree that sort of de-incentivizes you from picking them over one of the other Vanguards that you'll get access to. Kicking off the list is Sir Balin, the first Vanguard you actually get access to in the game, the Tyrant Christian alignment. He's a really good introduction to the Vanguard class, I think. He is a very basic one, nothing really crazy with him, but you can definitely learn how to play the class with him, and then as you get your other Vanguards later on, you can build off of this knowledge and seamlessly transition to them and their slight changes and really have no hiccups. A lot of people like him, understandably, because he's a Vanguard. As I mentioned in the intro, they're all amazing. And for some players, they'll carry Balin all the way to the end of the game. And honestly, there's no problem with that. I've done that. So that's really just a testament to how strong the Vanguard class is, but he is pretty much the definition of the standard Vanguard, and that puts him into B tier. Next up is Sir Bedivere. Poor old Bedivere. He's definitely the one that stands out a lot when people think of one of the worst characters in the game, and that is subjective because he is a Vanguard, so you can use him as a normal Vanguard and he'll be completely fine. But there's really no reason to pick him if you're going to do that, because the things that really hold him back is he has sprint instead of jump, and that's the biggest thing, because sprint is just nowhere near as good as jump. Originally, it used all your AP, turned it into movement AP, and that was it, so it was absolutely terrible. Now you at least use hide if you are not within a detection range at the end of sprint, but it still uses up all the AP on your turn. So if you're using sprint, that's it for your turn. Nothing else. You're going all in on this move. And second, he's definitely skewed to sort of be the trap guy. He has lightning trap, but as I covered in a build guide recently, the traps just are not great. So when players think of a character, why would I use this character compared to any other one? Bedivere is really towards the top of that list in most players' minds. So he is going to go into C tier just because he doesn't offer anything over the other Vanguards, and he actually has something that detracts from wanting to pick him when compared to the other Vanguards. Third on the list, our only female Vanguard, is Lady Boudicea. And Boudicea is kind of a monster, actually. She has the highest damage for her basic attack over all other Vanguards because she has 2 upgrades to its damage. On top of that, she also has an amazing support ability in the form of encouragement. In my discussions with other players, some people have kind of been like, why does she really need encouragement if you're going to be using all of her AP to go around and kill everything? Well, honestly, you use encouragement and then go kill things because you're not going to be able to kill everything all the time. You'll kill most of the things for sure, but not everything. So if you use that encouragement, it'll actually provide a bigger damage boost to your overall team using encouragement rather than just using that couple AP for her own attacks. So encouragement is an amazing support ability she has, plus just having the highest damage capability out of all of the Vanguards. She's most definitely going to be in S tier. The only real downside to Boudicea is you recruit her in Act 3, which is fairly late, and she is neutral, and her negative trait makes it so that titles don't apply loyalty bonus to her, so it can be a little difficult to raise her loyalty. You're pretty much going to have to send her on all of the events that she will succeed on to get her loyalty up to a significant level to really maximize her performance. This can be a bit of a hassle, but if you're experienced enough with the events to know which heroes need to go on which events, it's not a huge ask. And sure, she may have to dip out on a mission here and there, but I personally haven't had that be really impactful on my gameplay. It's a minor annoyance, but I do think she is worth it. And of course, if the fact that she can't have a title is that annoying for you, you can use a tome to remove that. Getting to our next Vanguard, though, we have Sir Tegyr. Tegyr is an Act 2 recruitment, I believe. Christian, and sort of the opposite problem of Boudicea. Not a problem, really. And sort of opposite of Boudicea, he gets loyalty really easily. His trait is that he just starts with an extra bonus to loyalty. The fact that he's also Christian with Balin, I do think is kind of interesting because you just have 2 Christian Vanguards at that point. And I guess it's really just deciding which one you like more aesthetically because they have the exact same skill tree. Every single skill that they have is shared between them, so shocking no one, he goes into B tier. There's nothing super unique on him, just easier loyalty, so if you're doing a Christian run, I suppose you can just switch to him later in the game, unless you're doing Christian Tyrant, I suppose. This alignment choice between them I think is kind of odd. I think if they made him maybe rightful instead of Christian, and obviously changed the story to just maybe match that a little bit more, I think that would have offered a bit more diversity in terms of character choice. Honestly, between him and Balin, they're pretty much the exact same character. Just pick the one you like more. And last on the list, we have Sir Tristan. Poor Sir Tristan. He gets dismissed so quickly in so many playthroughs. Sir Tristan is definitely the most unique amongst the Vanguards. However, his entry point into the game is by far the worst out of any character in the game. He is absolutely horrendous, very weak. There's no reason to use him instead of Balin. His attack does poison, but in Act 1 you're primarily fighting the Lost, so that's pointless, and it costs 4 AP instead of 3, so you're not even getting as many hits in. Once you get him to his Tier 2 skills, some things start to really show themselves, such as Drain Life, and like, oh, that's kind of cool, that's kind of interesting. He does have a way to heal himself, very effectively too, I might add, in case he takes damage. But then you kind of circle back to, well, my Vanguard rarely takes damage because I'm smart enough to make sure he always ends in hidden, and isn't in a path where he'll be revealed. But sometimes you can't control that, or sometimes you just rush and you overlook it. Drain Life comes in handy there. But even at that point, a lot of players may still just be like, I don't know if this is worth keeping. But then you get to tier 3, and he just has a huge glow up. He unlocks the Alchemist skill, so now his basic attack is down to 3, just like all the other Vanguards, which is huge. And there's the great upgrades on Alchemist as well. And he gets access to Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb is an amazing defensive skill. It protects your party from those pesky ranged attacks and can help you hunker down a bit more as the enemies come in a bit closer. Previously, the archers would also just waste their AP running up to you because I think their AI registered as, I just don't have line of sight on them, so I need to move to get a new line of sight. Now they just go into Overwatch. That is something to keep in mind, but he's not so much as the damage Vanguard as the debuff Vanguard. He's really good for bringing him against bosses because he has extra potent poison debuffs, so his damage reduction from enemy attacks that he inflicts them with is going to be the strongest in the game out of any other poison user. So he can really lower the damage you're going to be taking from those bosses, which can hit quite hard. When I say his damage is lower than the other Vanguards, that is true, but ultimately it's not a huge deal. You definitely can still use him, and he will still be mowing through people. He may just not get one kill that the other Vanguards may have been able to get, maybe 2. He's still plenty strong as a damage dealer. His main thing is the poison. If you just want to focus on the damage, however, then you'll probably want to go with the other ones. Overall, though, I do think he has a lot of useful utility that other Vanguards don't have, and I don't think the damage gap is significant enough to really drop him. I do think he belongs in A tier. The poison is just really good option if you want it. The damage is solid Vanguard damage, and Smoke Bomb is just a really good defensive ability. So there isn't really much to complain about other than his entry point. I think if he wasn't so bad in Act 1 and still not great during Act 2, he could maybe be S tier. But for about half the game, you're just kind of having to be like, I'm keeping around just because I know you're going to be good, or because I want to get Isolde. It's not really relevant once you're in the endgame stuff, but I am trying to tier them over their entire life usefulness, and his entry point really does kind of hurt him, I think. With Sir Tristan done and out of the way, that's it for the Vanguards. This video is a little bit shorter than my previous tier list. Vanguard is one of the smallest classes in the game, and because they're so samey, there isn't a whole lot to say for each one to explain why I'm differentiating them into the different tiers. But I hope I covered them in depth and well enough to make what differences they have clear enough to explain my reasoning. I don't think I'll get much in the way of disagreements. I feel like Vanguard is one of the classes where there's just a very large universal consensus on how the Vanguards really stack up against each other. I think maybe some people may put Tristan at the top because they really like his poison and his utility, and some people may drop him lower because they don't. But go ahead and, of course, let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? And why? I always like hearing what other people's thoughts are and their takes on the game. All that's left now is the Arcanist tier list, which will be coming out next week, and then after that, I'm going to do an entire character tier list, all of them in the entire game. Still trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to scale them and what, because, like, do I just put all the Vanguards in, like, A or S tier or something? So I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. As always, thanks for watching.